Are you a bass player and you're thinking about getting the Yamaha THR10-2 as a bass practice amp? Well, if you are, you're in luck because I've got Max back again this week. He's going to put the Yamaha through its paces today right here on GearGasms. Hi everyone, welcome to GearGasms. I'm your host Alan Barnes. Today we got Max. He's back. He's going to run the Yamaha THR10-2 through its paces. If you saw the previous video that Max did here on GearGasms, we went through the spark and all of its glory. But now the Yamaha THR10 gets its turn. Max is a friend of my son's. He plays in a high school show called Rock and Roll Revival that I've loved and participated in some for years and years. So he's been kind enough to come over to the studio today once again and give us not only his playing skill through the Yamaha, but then we're going to come back and tell you what the final thoughts are. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. It's mostly garbage, but every once in a while I do something that's halfway coherent. And without wasting a further second of your time, we're going to get right into it. All right, so we've got Max in here again. He's going to help us check out the Yamaha THR10 for bass. It's got 3 bass amps, but it's pretty simple. So we will start off with just the first model, which is Classic.
I gotta hide away from the copyright.
All right, so I gave you some reverb during that. Let's go ahead and play something. I'm just gonna pull effects in and out. Now that face, that was not a stank face in a good way. That was a who farted stank face, because I put echo on that. But anyway, that is just like its classic bass. Now one thing, this doesn't have the range of effects that others do, and it doesn't have any dirt pedals, so we can't play around like we did with the Spark for that. So let's just keep it simple and go right to Boutique. All right, start off again on Classic, and I'll go straight into Boutique.
Sounds like the only change is that they like took away all the high end.
Yeah, I found that same thing with the guitars. it was like when you went from classic to boutique, it sucked the mid-range out, which for you is probably a high-end mid-range on a guitar. And I don't know what boutique that's supposed to be, a boutique bass amp. So we'll stay right there. We'll have Max place again, and then we'll go over to modern, and I'll just keep going back and forth and see what we get. So just go wild. I switched you to a guitar amp. Oopsie.
In terms of like size, it doesn't sound huge because it's not. Right. But the speakers, you can like tell they're small.
Yeah.
So it doesn't amplify bass that greatly.
Yeah, but less farty than the Spark.
No, I think this would be a good headphone amp. There's a headphone port on this,
yep.
right?
Yeah.
That would be great for practicing with headphones in. Nice preamp.
And to be fair, I think it doesn't try to be a bass amp. It sort of throws that on there. It almost feels like an afterthought.
Yeah.
Whereas Spark is really sort of trying to position itself as the end-all be-all. And there's just really no such thing as an amp that works good for both guitar and bass. I've never met one. Except the Fender Bassman, which was intended to be a bass amp, and then guitar players sort of stole it.
Yeah, you get all those booming lows.
Yeah,
so.
That is the one exception. So the last thing we're going to do with the Yamaha THR10 with the bass is it does have some presets for bass. It does that horrible little nag every time. Even if you haven't changed a preset, you go to select your very first preset. It says you have unsaved changes. It's like, please stop. The only way to get out of it is to go into here and stay here. So it has three, just like the acoustic, it has three presets. This is called Old School Slapper. Max, you know what to do. Nice.
Definitely a good slap tone.
Cool. Let's go to finger bass. Nice. Rock picking bass.
Honestly, cool. I think if I used to pick on all of them, it would sound pretty much the same. Like with this and the slapping one.
All right, Leah, let's do that. All right, so that was that. Let's find that out. Let's test that theory. I'll take you back to slap. let's try finger bass, but with a pick.
Ah. I stand corrected.
Max was wrong.
I was.
They definitely sound different.
Yeah.
I think the magic here though is probably just EQ. I mean, I know that they're picking different models in here, but to me, the different models, it just feels like an EQ shift. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. There's a bit of a texture change between each one, so you get like a really crispy high texture to the picking one. But other times it like drops all the mids. So.
But again, for a bass practice amp, is that enough types of tones for you to sort of plug in and just?
Yeah, I play with clean all the time, so.
Right, so you wouldn't care about all the effects.
No.
So yeah, it gives you three tones to sort of fool around with.
Yeah.
Pretty decent. As you heard there were only 3 amp models, and there were only 3 presets. Max sort of thought that with a pick, all 3 of the presets would stay the same, but alas,
I was wrong.
he was kind of wrong. But hey, I kind of felt like he was right before we did it. It seems to me that the Yamaha, and this is true of the guitar amps too, it seems to be more between classic, boutique, and modern. It seems to be more of an EQ shift.
Yeah.
But it's an EQ shift that's behind the scenes, because if you look at the knobs on the screen, when you're switching, they don't automatically shift. But I think the underlying EQ changes, and then of course you can grab the knobs and change that a little bit. It feels more like that than modeling. I think it's a very functional, it's a very simple, straightforward tool. The Yamaha is not a lot of bells and whistles, but there's just something about it that felt less real than the Spark.
Yeah, so I feel like the clarity is the main thing that changes when you change the amp models. Right. So you'll go from like a super clear amp with the classic, then you go to the boutique and it's like you lose all your high end. And then you said it doesn't change on the knobs, and that doesn't really pan out. But with the positive grid, you can change everything. You can like see exactly what you're changing. You can change like the head, like the image.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So and that's the other thing that Yamaha does. It sort of leaves you guessing. It doesn't tell you exactly what the models are, and maybe that's because it's not really using modeling so much as it's just sort of designing a patch. One that they think sounds good, but it's not necessarily based on an Ampeg from the 60s. And again, I think in some ways that's good, because it doesn't set you up with these preconceived notions about what you're getting, and it really forces you to use your ears.
Yeah. So
I will give Yamaha props for that. What did we learn today? What did we learn?
The Yamaha likes to toot and rattle, so.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the metal case.
Yeah, probably got something to do with that.
When those bass frequencies go through it, you don't get it with guitar so much, but yeah, it vibrates a little bit. And to be fair, we've got it stacked on another amp. Maybe if it was sitting quietly in a place where it should be, it wouldn't be so bad. We also learned, although it seemed like an afterthought, the bass functionality that's in the Yamaha THR10, if you're someone that plays both, I think it would be a very, very good box to have. If you're just a bass player, I hate to say it, I don't think it's the practice amp for you.
No, like I think that you could probably just go with an amp head and use some headphones if you're gonna get a practice amp for bass, because then you can like hear everything clearly. You lose a lot of clarity when you go to the Yamaha.
And before you ask, because I know you're out there and you've got all your dumb questions queued up, no, you cannot gig with this thing. You cannot feed a power speaker cabinet or anything else. This is not for gigging. If you really think it's something you want to gig with, maybe you should just stay home. As always, I thank you for your time. I also thank Max for his time. We'll try and bring him back, because I have some more bass stuff that I want to get done. And believe me, with this kid playing through it versus me, you all are going to be very, very happy about that. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. You can buy a t-shirt if you got a few dollars. If you don't want to buy a t-shirt, I'm not mad at you. Whatever you do in the next 7 days, don't tell Don Felder about it, because he's just going to sit you down and make you go through an overly long, overly emotional story about how he got kicked out of and screwed over by the Eagles. Play more guitar, watch less YouTube, but keep coming back here week after week
on GearGasms.